let me ask you this, doctor. Why does an open wound act like that, in your opinion? Because it requires antibiotics, and people get sick. You can end up with failure of the kidney. Defendant's counsel, objection, Your Honor. The court, yes, sustained, counselor. Doctor, let me ask you this. What happens to the bone? Defendant's counsel, objection, Your Honor. The court, sustained. Defendant's counsel, I respectfully accept. I mean, if it goes untreated, a patient could die, is that right? Yes. Now, with respect to Perry and your review of his records, did you have an understanding of what the standard of care for the care and treatment of wounds was in 1999? Yes. Could you tell us what the standard of care was, in your opinion, if you will, for the care and treatment of wounds in 2002? Well, as it is now, it was the same in 2002 in terms of prevention. Okay, and did you come to any conclusion after your review of the records with respect to whether or not Central Island Health Care and Dr. Case have complied with those protocols or standards of care within a reasonable degree of nursing certainty? Defendant's counsel, objection, Your Honor. The court, yes, sustained. Within a reasonable degree of wound care and nursing certainty, can you say at this time? Defendant's counsel, objection, Your Honor. The court, I'll take that overruled. That is a proper question. Go ahead. In the skin care tracking record, there is a box for turning and positioning. Now, do you have a copy of that with you? Yes, I do. Plaintiff's counsel, all right, why don't we mark this for identification and I'll move it into evidence. It will take me a minute. Defendant's counsel, we have it. Plaintiff's counsel, again, if the court will indulge for a moment. The court, isn't it in evidence already? Plaintiff's counsel, it's already in evidence, Your Honor. The court, all right. She's therefore referring to something, so then you have to help her. I refer you to X in evidence. You don't have to pull out the exhibit as long as she has it so the jury knows what she's referring to. Plaintiff's counsel, I would like to take it one step further and make it easier for the jury. The reason I am suggesting only as a housekeeping measure that we put the specific document in is that in her right hand now it is in evidence, so that the jury does not have to go through all this again, Your Honor. The court, you'll be able to help the jury so that in your summation, by holding out a few pages and dog-earing them for the jury, if you wish to have them focus on them, but to have 2 and 3 exhibits of the same exhibit, it becomes not only counterproductive, but it becomes burdensome to have these copies. Your Honor, you are right. Okay, and by the way, it is important for nurses as well as doctors to keep records, is that correct? Yes, it's inherent in any profession, and especially in nursing, to show that what you did as part of your shift. You need to document everything, because if you don't document everything, you may as well not have done it. The court, and therein is born the phrase, not documented, not done. Is that right? Exactly correct. The court, okay, go ahead. All right, so you're referring now to the skin assessment and tracking form which is generated or created by Central Island Health Care? Yes. And that's part of their nursing. That's something that their nursing staff is supposed to review and complete? Right. What date now are you referring to? December 29th. I guess it was 98. There is no year. I'm assuming it was 1998. All right. Well, do you know when? Yes, 1998 approximately. All right. Well, that is the beginning of his stay at Central Island, so you're starting from the beginning, so to speak. Is that a correct statement? That's correct. So why don't you take the ladies and gentlemen of the jury and the court through the process that you began to review in order to come to the conclusions that you came to and that you are testifying to here today? Defendant's counsel, objection, irrelevant. The court overruled. I read through all the charts, the documents, the nurse's notes to find out what, if indeed, anything they did to prevent the occurrence of the wounds. They did nothing that's documented to prevent the future occurrence of additional wounds. Okay, and how do you know that? How can you determine that? I'm basing it on their lack of documents. Now, there came a time when the wounds that Mr. Perry came into Central Island with that had developed in his 4 to 6 week stay at North Shore University Hospital just prior to his admission into the nursing home, when those wounds healed. Is that right? Yes, they healed in, I think, March of 1999. Yes, we will leave it at that.
That was a little confused.
Was that fast?
Wasn't fast. So it's just
It was 200.
my software says it was. Oh, does it really? It says 190.
190.
I'm surprised though.
Well,
I didn't feel that.
see, the difficulty is that I'm saying the defendant, the plaintiff, those are extra words that are not counted.
So because you're doing the extra designations, that slows down the time to actually, like, it seems like
Well,
it's 190.
I'm doing, as he says, it's about 190, but I'm kind of adding in, is about 25 words that I say the defendant, the plaintiff, the defendant. So those are extra words that we should count. So that makes it 200. That's
Okay.
about the 200.
Okay.
But when they give, say, a full voice court exam, they don't count, they have a lot of colloquy, but they don't, because no one's saying anything. You've got the guys there.
Right, it's,
Four guys.
yeah,
So there's nothing to count. I have to say it because we don't have 4 people.
right.
That's right. But after a while, you get used to what the objections to questions are pretty much the same baloney. It's in different words, so it's not so safe to take a short form. But it's because they may put a please in the middle or something. Use a short form for a test.
Okay.
So everything I do is for a test. The good part of it is that after you get everything perfect and things that are meaningless on a job, but on a test are important, like it's important, don't put if I say the, because then it counts the same on a test as retrolental fibroplasia. If you left that word out, that counts the same as for the. I mean,
Okay.
So then, when you do these people do very well on tests, they do well on a job too, because it flows back that you have to, there's no way of preparing, giving dictation for an exam, but for a job. The
Right.
job is fast, slow, it's all over the lot.
I think staying in testing mode always helps, though.
Yeah.
Working.
Yeah, well, and you're good, I mean, you're very accurate, that's good, that's the way to be.
Thank you. Just-
All right, take it out. All right, ready? I am most honored to have been asked to talk tonight at this banquet. I am very proud to consider myself in a small way a part of this group of distinguished scientists. I still remember that my first assignment as a young engineer fresh out of college was to set up and operate a laboratory for the construction of a dam and canal project. I have been quite involved in problems of soil mechanics ever since. With the passage of the Federal Highway Act of 1956, we in America embarked on what has been called, and I think rightly so, the greatest public works construction project in all history. We are building our highways to meet the needs of our present-day automotive age. In a nation where individual freedom is supreme, we have evolved a wonderful way of life that has resulted in by far the highest standard of living in all history. A standard of living reflected throughout our 180 million citizens. It has been largely created by reason of the freedom of every individual, not just the select favored few, but everybody. Freedom from tyranny, freedom to strive, freedom to develop the potential every individual has, freedom to achieve, freedom to learn. Another freedom, which is unique today, is freedom of movement for every individual, which has become imprisoning distances. This has been made possible by our rubber-tired automobiles and highways. Actually, this mobility of the individual citizen has created in large measure our very way of life. In our operations, we have 180 million quasi-experts judging us and what we do. Our highways affect every one of our citizens and affect each differently. So there becomes quite a problem of resolving all the differences. I think we will all agree that soils and cohesion and people are basic. They are closely interrelated. If you will follow my discussion, I think you will agree that any attempt that people can make toward understanding must start with soils. And neither soils nor people would amount to much without cohesion. It appears that our Earth originated as a primeval cloud of cosmic dust that rolled through the stormy cosmos, and for billions of years passed through ages upon ages of consolidation, establishing cohesion and resulting in the Earth that we have today. And stabilization is still ahead, for as yet we don't have perfect cohesion. We still have stress and strain in the soil of our Earth, as witnessed the recent Earth upheavals in Chile. Man, in his eternal gropings, has always started with a creation. Genesis speaks of the creation with universal accents in its mighty opening phrases. I mention this because in our thinking it is well to have in mind that as we delve into the mysteries of our universe, or soils, or people, every mystery that science resolves points to larger mysteries on beyond. It is a striking fact that today cosmogony and religion seem increasingly to converge. If we want to understand people or soils and their cohesive relationships, it is necessary to get down to solid basic fundamentals, utilizing every avenue that we can. I think we will all agree on this general statement, but what we each mean by basic fundamentals may not be coincident. One of my electronic friends was discussing man with me some time ago and drew up a comparison. He told me that if all the atoms that made up John Jones were green peas, they would cover the entire Earth to a depth of 4 feet. Further, they would cover 128,000 other Earths of the same size, 4 feet deep. But as pointed out, if the solid matter was absolutely consolidated to eliminate all space between the atom particles, the resultant mass would be a sphere about the size of a small pinhead. This shook me up so that I have not even been able to properly worry about the world since. So while I am still trying to determine the exact size of a small pinhead, it seems that quite a difference in perspective may get involved in considering fundamentals. Consider this: if we reduce the sun to the size of a 6-inch rubber ball, the Earth would be a speck of dust in the further corner of this room, and the nearest neighbor in the same relative size relationship would be down at the Atlantic entrance to the Panama Canal. My electronic friend tells me that the same relative structure arrangement of the universe exists fundamentally in all materials and that we consider solid. Maybe we should better say that dust thou art, and unto dust shalt thou return. Understanding is not a simple matter in our time. Science has extended our world into the infinitely complex, and it is becoming extremely more difficult to cut across our many specialized disciplines to get an overall good look and to see, to understand, and to comprehend what soils or people are all about.
That was tough.
Yeah.
I was literary at 190.
That was a good list.
Were you following that thing about all the, see, man is composed of 2 billion cells. So he says if each cell was a green pea, that it would take 128 Earths. You could spread it across the Earth, it would cover the Earth 4 feet deep, 128 Earths. That's how much 2 billion, and the cell, of course each cell you can't see even with a microscope.
Right.
They're too small. But 2 billion, billion, we don't recognize exactly. I mean, there are 3 or 4 people in the world who have $1 billion or something. But it would take them a lifetime to count their money. If it was single dollar bills, that's how much it is. I mean, billions. But the word billion in the 19th century, and even in the 20th century, it wasn't the word that was used because no budgets got up to $1 billion. And now it's nothing. Now the federal government talking about $1 trillion.
Yeah.
It's 3 trillion debt. So trillions are just out of their mind.
You never really heard about billionaires growing up. You know, it was more, oh, if I had $1 million or.
Oh, yeah.
You never heard of, like, now you hear more so
Yeah.
billionaires.
Well, that's sometimes I see people going in to buy the lottery for, and it says 30 million or 400 million.
Mm-hmm.
So I was asking one guy, I said, what would you do if you won the money? He says, it's too mind-boggling to consider. I mean, he's just putting in, what is it, how much is it, $1?
$1.
Yeah, $1. So anyway, but it is, I mean, if I won, if I put in the thing and I won, say, 100 million, so half goes for income tax, so you're really winning half. So but even $50 million, that means a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
See, I would look at it,
500,000.
if I put it into, of course now you get no interest anywhere, but if you got, say, 3% interest, very conservative, you bought something very conservative. 3% of 50 million, is $150,000 a week.
Mm.
You couldn't spend the interest, let alone the principal. So that's why these people who are very rich,
Mm-hmm.
they never get poorer. They only get richer, because no matter how much they spend, the interest is so much that they can't
Yeah,
spend
so,
it. Like Bloomberg, if you take this, he still owns the stock in his company. The stock in his company is worth about $33 billion, and he's a 90% owner.
Mm.
So when they have a board of directors meeting for the amount of the dividend, so the board just calls him in and they ask him, how much do you want us to put it? Because he gets most of it.
Mm-hmm.
So he says, well, make enough dividend where I'll have $1.5 billion for the year. So then someone asked him, what do you do with the $1.5 billion? He says, I'll tell you what I do with it. I have about 8 charities across the board, Catholic, Jewish, Protestant. He says, I give away $750 million in charity. So he says, all the charity is very happy with me. Then he says, I have $750 million left. He says, now people tell me, gee, you have 5 houses, each house has 4 housekeepers. So he says, so what? So I said, what? The money. The money, how much is that? He said, I pay each housekeeper $50,000, that's $200,000. The house cost me about $300,000 to maintain, tax and all that. It's $500,000. I got 5 of them. That's that's $2.5 million.
200.
He says, I'm trying to spend $750 million, and that's $2.5 million. Then they criticize him that he's got this tremendous airplane sitting with 2 pilots, 24 hours a day, ready to go. They're right in there, waiting to go.
Mm-hmm.
And he, once in a while, he takes a helicopter and he goes over there, and in 25 or 30 minutes, he's in Bermuda or whatever his house is. No matter how much he spends, it's not even touching it. I mean, it's sort of, for the lay person, it's incredible to think of that much money.
Yeah. Yeah. Yo, like you said, it boggles the
So,
mind.
but there are only many people like that in the world. I mean, maybe there are 25 or 30 who have a billion or more.
Mhm.
And in fact, Trump is always complaining that when Fortune or some magazine comes out with the richest people in the world,
Mhm.
they never have him as one of the billionaires. So he sued them once. He says, I want you to, so he said, wait a minute. You don't have a net worth of $1 billion. You have a net worth, we figured out, $960 million. He says, why is that? He says, these, my gambling places in Atlantic City. He said, wait a minute, the banks own 95% of them. We looked into it. In other words, they're not making money. So if he loses $25 million for the year, the bank says, oh, we'll take the stock. So pretty soon they own 90%, 95%. He owns 5%. They keep his name. It's a good name. And he built on the west side here about 6 tremendous 40-story.
By Columbus Circle?
Yeah, up around. Well, Columbus Circle is one thing. That's one building that he bought. But he built from scratch 8 apartment houses around 68th Street, overlooking the Hudson River.
Okay.
So I understand that, I mean, altogether they're worth 4 or 5 billion, but he only owns about 5% of it. In other words, he had to borrow from the banks, and the banks are happy to give him the money and get good money, results from the money.
But he's not worth $1 billion.
But he's not worth $1 billion. So what? So he's worth 900, and I mean, that's still, he can spend all the money he wants. And he's always building more things and taking over more things. And, But you know, when you listen to him personally, someone interviews him, he's not a very bright guy.
He doesn't seem like it to me.
I mean, he's,
I think he's prudently invested, probably.
oh yeah. Okay. That was, I gave that at 190, but it was 220, the ASA, oh, it was the ASA championship at 220. So they gave it an easy take, but it was 220, I mean, you got to have speed. Yeah, I don't have the year that it was. But I see I was giving dictation from this take in 1985. So I had classes in the court, and there were some guys who were very good. The chief reporter there, Sam Morrow, he's not the chief anymore, but he was good. He won the New York State championship at 280. So he's still there. So I asked him one day, I saw him about a month ago. So I said, Sam, let me ask you a question. Do you use the tape when the tapes seem to be in there with reporters? He says, absolutely. I said, well, what do you do with the tape? He says, I don't use it for transcribing, but he says, once in a while there's a legal argument, and some lawyer is 25 feet away. Oh, you want to get it? He turns around.
Yeah.
You catch what he said, and he said, I'm not that good in the law that I can recreate, and you know, so they're not listening to tape. It's clear as a bell.
Okay.
So I said, well, that's good. And so I said, well, what about all the other 34 reporters in the Southern District? He said, you all have it as a backup. He says there are a couple of them, 4 or 5 who are weak on speed, and they use it before they're very knowledgeable to make a transcript, but they didn't have it all. Now they have it all with the transcript, you know, listening to tape. But he said most of the people, like that woman we met, she's very good.
Southern District?
On the street we met some woman, what was her name?
Yeah, she gave me her car. She
Yeah,
was
she
from
gave you
Southern
car.
District.
So she's very good, but she has a tape, but she doesn't use it for transcription. It just takes too much time. It's only if you have to have it.
Okay.
She's got it all down perfectly. It's just that if she sees some part that she's not sure of, she can check it with the tape.
She's got like half the alphabet behind her name.
Okay.
No, really, you got to see her card. It's impressive.
Ready?
Yeah.
Where do you get that?
I think I got it.
Tell us that. But now we seem to have lost all sense of ourselves as a family unit. We are allowing ourselves to be torn apart and put in competition with each other over the resources of our land. Most parents in America are working hard as they can to be good parents. They may need better information so that they understand just what needs to be accomplished, but they are getting up every day working as hard as they know how to provide for themselves and their children. I have met with working mothers and fathers over the last few months, and I know the sacrifices they are making to put food on the table, pay the mortgage or rent, pay the medical bills, and instill an ethic of work and responsibility in their kids. Of course, parents do and should bear the primary responsibility for their own children, but parents know that the care, the warmth, the love, and discipline that each child needs cannot be delivered in a vacuum. We are all affected by what goes on around us. As the National Council of Teachers said in a 1994 letter sent to parents, we know that no government can love a child and that no policy can replace a family's care, but the programs that our nation has can either support or hurt families as they cope with the moral, social, and economic stress of caring for children. The reason, for instance, that our children do fairly well in terms of seeing their doctors and dentists is that we have support, both through private insurance that is partly paid by our employers and through public insurance. So we know that there is a tie between what families feel they are able to do for their children and whether or not they really can do it. Let's not fool ourselves. National policies, whether they are on education, health care, work, welfare, or anything else, are mirrored every day in the lives and wisdom of our children. And all of us, through our local, state, and national governments, play a role. Sadly, today, the social safety net known as Medicaid is being cut at an alarming pace. It is being cut with very little discussion and no real debate. Decisions are being made in haste, not only about who pays for the health care in America, but about who gets health care and who does not. We are all for balancing the budget, and we are all for giving states and cities greater flexibility to run programs. But as the President has said many times, there is a right way and a wrong way to get our economic house in shape. The wrong way is to cut health care plans for millions of children, disabled people, and the poorest of oldest Americans, all to finance a $240 billion tax cut for the richest families in our country. Medicaid is the main health coverage for a quarter of all children in America and 1/3 of all children under 3. More than half of these children live in families with working parents. These are parents who are not getting welfare checks. Medicaid is the main source of health coverage for millions of children who are disabled or who suffer from chronic illnesses. Medicaid is the main source of health coverage for 9 out of 10 children with HIV and AIDS. Children who, through no behavior or action of their own, have acquired these difficult and sad illnesses. It is the main source of insurance for over 2/3 of people in nursing homes. Today, Medicaid is a lifeline for millions of children and families in the world. Ripping out this lifeline, ripping out this safety net is not the American way. It is not the American way to deny infants the shots that they need to stay healthy. It is not the American way to deny treatment to kids who are disabled or very ill. It is not right to punish the hardworking parents whose company health plan disappears when a job changes or is lost. It is not right to force the oldest among us to relinquish their possessions and live a life of poverty just to pay for a loved one's nursing home care. Cutting billions of dollars from the Medicaid program will force many families to make desperate choices between health care for their children or nursing homes, choices between buying food or putting money aside for school fees. As this debate comes to light in the months ahead, I hope that politicians in this country start to think about these issues not as partisans, but as parents. In attempting to meet our fixed budget targets, we are cutting back on medical coverage for America's children. Our children deserve better than that. We should prevent any harm ever coming to them. That's what good parents would do, and that's what a good country should aim for as well.